Let's talk today about 5 really simple things you can do with your kids to help them with anxiety. So if you're brand new here, welcome. My name is Bettina. I'm a mum to 3 young boys. I've been teaching for about 17 years now, and I'm also a guidance counselor in a primary school. So I work with kids every day, particularly around anxiety. So the first thing I want you to do is think about reducing uncertainty for your little one. So I want you to think about a time in your life where you felt most anxious. And then I want you to notice how little control you had at that time. So whatever was making you feel anxious, whatever the experience was, I want you to notice that you didn't have control in that experience, and that was adding or contributing to the anxiety. I know for me, those times when I felt most anxious, so during a period of 12 months where I experienced 3 losses and I wondered if I would ever have my 3rd child, when we were building this house and the whole experience was a disaster and the builder went broke and we ended up in a legal battle with them. There are videos on my channel about both of these things if you'd like to go and see the kind of state I was in at the time. But both of these experiences were full of uncertainty. I didn't know when they were going to resolve. I didn't know what the outcome would be. And I had very little control. I could only control a really small part of my life. I couldn't control the outcome of what was going to happen. And so for our little people, this is the same thing that's happening. But if you think about the life of a child, they often have very little control over what's going on in their life. You as the parent is in control. They also might be feeling a lot of anxiety around things in their life that feel uncertain. So one way that you can help them to feel less anxious is give them more certainty and help them to feel in control of certain aspects of their lives. So one way we do this is by giving our kids routine. Yes, routines might feel boring and basic, but routines help us to feel settled and safe because we know what's coming. There's certainty in our day. So build some beautiful routines in your day, particularly around those things that make your little one anxious. So if it's anxiety around school, have a really great morning routine or a really great bedtime routine. So we're making sure that they've had enough sleep and that their morning goes really smoothly and it's not chaos and all this stress before we have to go and do this big thing of leaving mum or dad to go to school. If they feel anxiety around certain types of events, whether it's social events or going and doing a new sort of sport, create as much certainty for them around that as you can. Have lots of conversation. Talk about your experiences of doing new things and how it makes you feel and how you cope with those uncomfortable feelings of newness in your body. You could do visual timetables and things like that so they know what's happening. Take photos of them doing certain activities in a certain order and put it up on the fridge or a place that they can see it regularly so they know what to expect. You could also do the same thing around school. Make connections with teachers and friends that they see at school, familiar faces that they feel safe with. Take photos of your child with them and then put them on the fridge and have conversations about them at home. So that connection between home and school is really strong. It helps to take the uncertainty out of it and they're going to feel safer and less anxious about school. On this note, I think it's also really important to really be listening to the clues that their questions are giving you. Often our kids ask lots of questions. I know mine certainly do. And sometimes in the busyness of life, I'm like, just giving flippant answers. But if I stop and listen, often those questions are around things they're puzzling over, things they're worried about. And I often find they ask kind of cryptic questions. They never straight out ask about the thing that's causing anxiety, but they might ask questions around days of the week, or when a certain thing is happening, or who a certain person is, or they might want to know some really random fact about a person that's kind of playing on their mind. And these questions are just them trying to understand their world, trying to reduce the uncertainty for themselves. So even though I know you're living a super busy life, try and listen for the cues that those questions they ask are giving you and try to take the time to answer and understand them and encourage questions and encourage them to ask further questions if you haven't actually answered what they wanted, rather than kind of shutting them down with one-word answers. And then they kind of hold all that anxiety because they haven't been able to really understand what is going on for them. So the second thing I want you to do if your little one is struggling with anxiety is to deal with your own anxiety first. So many of the families that I work with who have little ones who are struggling with anxiety have parents who are also battling anxiety. And I don't say this to blame you. I'm not saying that your anxiety has caused their anxiety, but I think you're going to struggle to help your little one manage theirs if you don't know how to manage yours. So the first step has to be with you. Learn what works for you to calm your anxiety. Learn how you can ease those feelings within your own body first, and then you're going to be better equipped to share that with your little one. So if you're looking for yoga practices and meditations to help you with anxiety, I have lots in my online yoga circle. The link for that community will be below in the description box, so please join us over there, because I think it's so important for us to have an awareness of our own body, and that's what yoga gives us, this awareness of what's going on in the moment. And so when we're in that present moment awareness, we can notice when we're rushing our child through things. And look, life is busy. Our life is so busy. And I too get stuck in that, come on, we need to go there, grab your shoes, grab your hat, have you got this, have you got that? And whenever I'm stuck in that go, 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 it creates stress and anxiety in my own body, and it creates stress in the bodies of my kids as well. But when I'm present and aware of that, I can still be feeling that internal drive that, oh, we've got to get to school on time and I've got to get to work. But the way that I interact can be very different. I can take a breath. I can know that me pushing them and pushing them to the meltdown that I'll then have to deal with before I can even get to school is not going to help us hurry up. And so I can be more patient, and I can be more measured, and I can be more organized and have some really good systems around parts of the day that I know stress me out. That present awareness of how you're showing up in the family and how you're showing up every day is so important in helping your kids. So start with you, put your oxygen mask on first, and then you're going to be in a better position to help your kids with theirs as well. The third really simple change is incorporating more music, more singing into every day. Don't underestimate the power of a good sing-along or a good dance party to shake off those uncomfortable feelings in your body. So we religiously have sing-alongs whenever we're in the car. The kids have their own playlists on my Spotify account. They know what they like, they know all the words. And because we listen to the same songs over and over again, we are all singing. It's like a giant karaoke car. And it is amazing that when they get in the car after school and when they're sniping at each other and they're telling you all the things that happened in the school day and they're kind of just cranky and it's like, I've held it together all day and now I need to let it all out to you because you're my safe person. We have those moments and we have those chats, but we also just crank the music and we sing it out. And 9 times out of 10, by the time we've gotten home, it's like they've processed all the stuff they needed to get out anyway, and then we can just go on with our afternoon. And of course, there are still sometimes conversations about things that are worrying them, but the whingy, complainy energy is already out through music, and there really is something magic in that. So where can you put more music in your everyday? It might be turning the music up and having a dance party in the kitchen while you make dinner. It's become a part of our morning routine. And I think that familiarity of I'm going to get this time in the car with my family, singing my favorite songs, it's a bit of a bonding experience and is a really nice way to spend those last few minutes before your kids get out of the car in the morning. My littlest struggled a lot with going to school last year and really feeling anxious about starting the school day. This year it's been a lot better. We still have those days sometimes, and I've really found that music in the morning and him having his favorite song in the car on the way to school helps him to deal with some of those feelings he has in his body before he has to get out of the car and start the school day. The fourth thing I want you to do with your kids to help them manage anxiety is to practice doing hard things. I think this is one of the unfortunate side effects of the type of society we live in now, where we don't encourage our kids to go outside and play as much because we're worried about their safety, and they are inside more on devices. They're less likely to be climbing trees because we're worried about them breaking bones, or doing risky activities. Yes, we know more about the dangers of all those things we probably did as kids, but doing those challenging, dangerous activities were actually what taught us that we can do hard things and we can navigate tricky situations and still be okay. If our kids don't get the opportunity to actually explore what it feels like to do somewhat risky play, then they end up feeling incapable in their bodies when they go and do something like going to school, which is tricky when you're little, going to school, leaving that person that you love so much. They have less experience doing other things that felt tricky, less life experience of knowing that I can get through this tricky feeling and be okay. So I think you need to let your kids climb trees, do challenging things. My kids at the moment, their current thing is to scoot down our big hill that we live on, and then they have a jump set up and a mattress, and they go on the jump and land on the mattress. And while the mum and me is like internally going, oh my God, we're going to have a broken bone here, I also have to let them do it because I think it's really important for them to learn that Yes, this feels a little bit scary and I have those butterflies in my belly, but I did it. And then afterwards, I feel so good about myself because I did the tricky thing. And then when we go and do other things in our daily life, we can refer back to that feeling of, yeah, I felt the uncomfortable feelings, I did the tricky thing, I survived, and I'm okay. So even though I know it feels tricky as a parent to let your kids explore risky play, I think it is so important. And I think it helps immensely with those feelings of anxiety that they get. And then finally, let your kids experience being in their bodies as much as possible. Similar to the last point, the society where we live, where we're doing less risky play, we're using our bodies less, we're inside on devices more. Just like us as adults, when we live in our head and all of our work is in our head and we don't use our body in any way, we can find ourselves feeling really stressed and really overwhelmed by everything. And you might notice as soon as you go to the gym or do a yoga class or go for a walk, just being in your body, in your senses, maybe out in nature, experiencing with your body, you instantly feel better. Our kids are the same. They need to move their bodies. They need to get out and play. And I understand some kids are naturally more drawn to being physical than others. I know one of my boys would choose to be on devices all day long if we let him, whereas the other two can kind of take it or leave it. They'll have a play and then they'll move on to something more physical, more active. So I know that as a parent, you have to really work a lot harder for those kids who aren't naturally drawn to being physical with their body. But there are other ways you can do this that aren't just putting them on a bike or encouraging them to climb a tree if they're not super keen. You can also do lots of non-active activities that can help kids be in their bodies. Things like taking a shower or having a warm bath. It's a sensory activity. We're feeling into our body. Those things can also help us to get into our body and get out of our head. The same way going for a swim will do it. You can teach your kids self-massage. So after they get out of the shower, rubbing into their body, using pressure points, so pressing into those parts of the body or massaging into their feet or massaging into their neck, giving them a head massage. All of these things are helping them to notice their body sensations, which in turn then helps them to notice those anxious sensations in their body and be able to do something with them or do something to help them. If your kids aren't super keen on moving their body and getting active, it could just be a really nice moment of connection for you, lying on the grass outside, looking up at the clouds or looking up at the stars and telling stories and jokes in this space. None of these things require us to buy anything or pay for anything. It doesn't have to be complex. It's really just those simple moments that help you, those moments of connecting with your partner when you get home from work after a stressful day, of talking about what happened and processing it, of quiet where you're not distracted by 100 things. That is what helps us to get out of our head and into our bodies. And it's the same for our kids as well. Learning how to do some deep breathing. So taking a few moments just to breathe and show your kids how to breathe. Sometimes the breath isn't enough to shift those anxious feelings, but it can be enough just to notice them. And the noticing is the first step. Another non-active activity you could do to help them be more mindful and in their bodies is catching bugs. You have to be quiet and still and creep up, and they have to be conscious of their body in order to capture a bug. And if they're interested in capturing bugs, you can teach them to be gentle and kind, and we don't want to squish it because then we can't look at the bug anymore. And so even something as simple as being mindful and aware of your body through catching bugs or some similar sort of activity can be enough for your kids to get them out of their heads and into their bodies. So I'd love to know from you. Please share in the comments, what are some of the things you do with your kids to help them with anxiety? What works for me and my kids won't necessarily work for you and yours. And everyone who comes from this video can then go and visit the comments for more great ideas.